Yeah, so I really like how you were talking about how the why, right? The why is very important. The why is what drives people. Everyone has a different why. Obviously, for you, the why in your life was you want to be a fun grandmother. You want to have energy. You want to be able to lift up your grandkids. And now you're able to do that. But there are lots of gyms you could have gone. But you came to me and you stay with me and you do this training. And we were just talking about how it has the physical fitness component. It's got the nutrition component, which is holistic nutrition, which is a unique thing in itself, right? It's not just regular nutrition, right? Where people maybe are not stressing organic and non-GMO. Maybe they're giving people soy. I don't even necessarily know what like conventional nutritionists do, but I do know that they might be advising, oh, it's okay to have some candy sometimes. When you have an autoimmune, you really can't. Like you have to be more strict, right? So holistic nutrition, and then the spiritual healing component, which is also very, very important. And that's how I practiced for the first 10 years of my business. So I really got that down. That's not just an addition, an addendum that sort of like got included in. That's like the foundation. That's like the driver. So I would love you to tell me more about the decision, your why, as to why you chose this holistic program where the spiritual is such a big component versus just going to any gym or any weight loss program.
Right. Well, mostly because I've tried all the other things. I've been to a lot of different gyms and some really expensive gyms, and been to lots of different weight loss programs. And then I've done a little spiritual work on the side. What I've never done is put all of those together with like one person or one program. And like that's just been so important to me because you're able to coach me in a way with all of those things connect in a very unique way. The other thing is when you go to a group gym or I've done like group weight loss kinds of programs, like you don't get the level of individual advice and attention and that you get with the program that you're doing, because I can talk about something that's happening with me at the time and you'll have some great recommendations for me. So it's just been really unique. And that whole spiritual piece of it, to me, I've been doing this for 6 months. So I think it's been about 6 months now. So there was maybe one workout program I stuck to that long, but then I wasn't eating healthy and I wasn't like taking care of myself spiritually. So hard to stick with it. And I wasn't getting the results, I don't remember a time I lost 40 pounds. So I can't even remember when I've been at this weight, despite all the years of trying all of these things. Like in a good thing, it's been a long time since I've been at this lower weight I'm at now, and I still have some work to do. But I also, it's like I know I can get there with all of the components of it, and some weeks there's more emphasis on one part of it than another, but it's all important, and you're working with me on all of the different things at one time. So I just think it's very unique, and it's what's helped me with the success that I've had so far.
Exactly. And, a fair question that people ask who've never really experienced necessarily the spiritual components. They've never done spiritual energy healing. Maybe they've never heard of shamanism. They've done maybe some fitness. They've gone to the gym. Maybe they did some weight loss stuff on their own or in groups. But when they see the plethora of things, the fair question is, but how can one person do all those things? Maybe she's not good at this or that. What's the truth? What has been your experience with that?
Well, I think that you are good at all of those things. So, and I think I told you this in the beginning, but when I was looking for something, I didn't even know really what I was looking for, like that spiritual component, like that's what attracted me to looking more into your program and ultimately signing up, because it's so unique. Like it really is a unique set of gifts. And, you also, I know that you have people that, like you have people who help with the nutrition testing and those things. So you've been able to bring in experts or whatever, people to help with those parts of the business as you need to too. And you live it. Like, it's not like you're just giving advice for others, like you live it and you can talk about your experiences with it and some of your work, without sharing personal details, but you share about, oh, I know sometimes I work with people who struggle with this and this sometimes help them. Like you can bring in other people's experience to help with that too.
Exactly. Other people's success stories, how they overcame various things. And that's the benefit of having been in practice for 18 years. I worked with so many different people. I feel very blessed to have worked with people actually all over the world, because I've always worked by phone. Even before Zoom and Skype, there was always phone. And that's just been my personality. I've always really liked to work with a variety of different people, very versatile type of practice. So I feel like I've heard it all. and
Right.
and in the beginning, when I even wasn't working holistically yet, I was working as a spiritual counselor. Actually, people were still bringing every type of problem imaginable. And that's actually where I realized I really have to expand my mind in what kind of solutions that I offer. And I had to really think about how to help people solve various things. A lot of them were actually physical. They were coming in with spiritual goals, but the things that were holding them back were physical. I was always doing physical training. I ran track in high school. I was working out. I did yoga. I got my yoga certification. I was in my 20s a long time ago. So I was always doing the physical fitness. But what I realized is a lot of other people aren't. That wasn't obvious to them. They didn't figure that part out. So I'm like, well, all I got to do is bring it to them. And so, yeah, you mentioned how I actually live it. That's absolutely true. I don't think I couldn't offer the service if I wasn't doing it, if I wasn't getting the results for myself from the physical fitness and the holistic nutrition and the spiritual. To me, they're just all part of a healthy lifestyle. How could it be otherwise? You
Yeah.
know? And I think I mentioned earlier, but like, like I've known people who are great bodybuilders, natural bodybuilders without steroids, and they're very, very healthy, but they could drink regular water, eat chicken and rice, and they just grow muscle. Like they don't have to think about all the supplements and all that. Maybe they're not overcoming an autoimmune. They're not overcoming, maybe years of alcoholism. They're not overcoming a cancer surgery. They don't have those issues. So they can't help somebody with that. They might be great at bodybuilding for other, usually men, sometimes women who want to do that. That's great, but they can't help with all these other things. Whereas I had to overcome all sorts of things, an entire resume of health issues. I had all kinds of trauma and damage in the past, but I healed it. I don't have it anymore. I know for 100% sure I don't have it anymore, because when I get those naturopathic tests that my clients do, those things don't come up. They're done. I resolved them. That's how I know that this works. That's why I can confidently offer it, because I've seen it in me, I've seen it in my clients and my family members. My mother's now 75 years old. She's never really exercised. She was severely morbidly obese, unfortunately, but I'm very different from my family. Both of my parents were morbidly obese. So my father never really exercised, unfortunately, but my mother at 75 started to exercise. She is looking better. She's losing weight. At first, every time I had to do an exercise, it was just a little bit too difficult. She was complaining. Now she's like asking, "Oh, can we train today?" so, so yeah, it's like when you really are doing it the right way, you want to do it. You have energy from it. It feels good. And it's really sad. I hear these stories of young women who join various weight loss programs, and yeah, they become bulimic and they become depressed because they're not eating at all. I don't know what they're doing over there. And then some of them start to smoke because that like reduces their appetite. I'm like, this is not holistic. This is awful. You're robbing your longevity. You're robbing energy from your longevity. So one main difference between conventional styles of, I think, more conventional styles of coaching and holistic is that we're building for longevity. So there's stuff we're doing now for today, for tomorrow, but also for 10, 20, 30 years down the line. And also for your kids and their kids. Like I'm thinking in a shamanic way, 7 generations down the line, we're building health, especially if I'm working with young women in their 20s. We have to build health so when they have kids, they're healthy. And when they have kids, they're healthy. Because, like there's stories, so many stories of bodybuilders. The old style bodybuilders lived until 80, 90. The new bodybuilders die in their 20s and 30s. Why? Obviously, it's the steroids, which I don't advise to anybody. I don't think it's healthy at all. But also because they're depleting from their longevity. They are bodybuilding by tapping into that inner resource. But that inner resource they have to build it up for the future. Instead, they're tapping into it and using it up for building muscle. So that's totally like the opposite of what we're doing here. And that's why the progression has to be sort of slow. I've seen incredible research that shows that the more muscle you build, the better it is for your brain health, the better it is for your emotional and mental health. That's absolutely true. So we love muscle here. But if it's muscle at the expense of your longevity or muscle at the expense of your mental health, that's not holistic. We don't do that.
Right.
Right.
I think a little bit just even to just about general kind of lifestyle things, and just as you were talking about that, I was thinking how, like for fun or to blow off steam, I, go out drinking on the weekends and go, hang out in the bars and stuff and just have, and you would challenge me. It's not that you're saying I can't do that. Like it's always my choice. But what I realized was just how unhealthy it was and how it was impacting me, like, for weeks on end, if I'm going to choose to live that way, and so having you just help me reevaluate that and to like, what are some other things? Can you go out and go kayaking or go, I mean, you just help challenge those because we get in patterns of ways of doing things and ways of coping. And so I just think it's so important. Again, it's always our choice. It's always been my choice, but it's been really helpful to have somebody to just help support you in making some of those. I mean, some changes that were hard. I was never an alcoholic, but having alcohol was really bad for me in particular. I mean, I was really impacted by it. So,
Absolutely, yeah. People with autoimmune things, they just get clobbered with alcohol, even a little bit. Sometimes they don't know it and it hits them hard. And the next day, they just feel like they got hit by a truck. And they're like, other people aren't having that issue. Why is this happening to me? And sometimes they have to hit rock bottom before they realize I can't do this anymore. It's not helping. Another difference between this program and a lot of other programs is people think like calories in, calories out. They just think in terms of calories.
right. Yeah.
And that's not enough. I fundamentally think in spiritual terms and in energy terms. And so alcohol can lead to demonic possession. It's been known to do that. So it's it's actually a spiritual problem. It impedes your spiritual and psychic clarity. If you want to be a fun grandma, if you want to be adult in the room, you need your spiritual compass working perfectly well because people depend on you to make good decisions. So it's not, and people are like, well, what about a little drink? Yeah, that little drink can lead you to be impaired in your judgment for the next month. Some people are like, well, but I can afford that. No, you can't afford that. When, like once you start to calculate how it throws you off your goals, you'll see that you really can't afford it, besides the fact that it really clobbers your immunity. And then how does it connect to weight loss? If your immunity is impacted, you can't lose weight because it's hard to lose weight. You need strong immune system to clean out all this garbage inside the fat cells, and you can't. So all of this ties together, and as a holistic practitioner, I studied how all these things tie together. And it's a never-ending journey in terms of learning. I'm always learning. I don't pretend to know everything, but I know enough to be able to help a person overcome these things in a holistic way. And I think also the reason people don't understand how it's possible to have these different tools working all together in a harmonious way is because they themselves don't understand how these things work together. They understand a certain part, but they don't understand other parts. But I always thought in terms of systems. That's just how my mind works. I'm very analytical, and my mind thinks in terms of systems. So I see how things fit together and how parts move. I think that's more of like, stereotypically, it's more how the male mind works. But anyway, I'm very female here, but that's just how my mind works. It always has. And so I think of how I automatically, when people bring in their problems, just in that very first conversation, when people tell me all these things, I see it in terms of moving parts and how the moving parts need to be moved around in order to bring things back to harmony. Whereas I think other people only see one part of it, one puzzle piece, and like, okay, I'll just take care of this one puzzle piece. And that's fine. If other people want to work like that, if that's what they can do, great. But the problem for clients that I saw for all these years is that, so they'll go to a fitness coach for fitness, they'll go nutrition for nutrition, they'll go to this for this and this for that. And then fundamentally, when they're on their own, it's way too many messages and you don't know how they all fit together. You're on your own. And because when you're fundamentally on your own, that means you're not making the best decisions. Who is there to show you how to put all these things together? There's got to be a person like that. Well, that's what the holistic practitioner ideally would help you to do.
Right.
How to put all these things together. And then if someone had, like, I'm not going to do cancer surgery. So, but I understand things of what caused the cancer, how to recover from cancer surgery. I understand those parts. So if someone wanted to do surgery, there's experts for that, lots of experts for that. But those experts can't tell them how to design their lifestyle and nutrition going forward so that problem doesn't happen again. They're not taught. They don't know that. That's the holistic practitioner. That's what we do.
And I think about how you can raise certain things, and it wasn't all of it at once. Like, you focused on one thing after another, and then I don't love the physical fitness part, but I know it's good for me and I'm feeling stronger, so I love that about it. So that's why it's important to me. But some things that you said, and I keep thinking about it, is like, I had the nutrition down. I'm still working on the spiritual and the meditation and things, but I'm feeling better, more confident about that. You had just said, you're gonna have to have just this level of fitness, like, ongoing. Like, it's so important. I'm not gonna be able to progress without that. And you continue to challenge me. So I feel like you can lift forward kind of the areas I need when I need it and help me move into them. And you kind of highlight, and you'll say, this week we need to focus on this thing. And you're just so, obviously just super intuitive and able to tap into those things so quickly and make recommendations specific to me. And so that's what I really appreciate that. But it's not just like you're holistic and doing them all. Like, when to, how to use them all together with each individual person, how they need to receive it.
Exactly right. Yeah, because I know a little bit of what's going on in each person's life, and I know what they're dealing with. So I wouldn't have them do something that actually would be counterproductive to a challenge they're dealing with in their life at that moment. It's like teachable moments. If a person is dealing with a specific thing, I'm going to give them things that are going to help them with that, if that makes sense, and pull back if they're doing other things and give them something else. So I think a lot of people don't do that. There's like, here's a program. This is what you do. Just do it.
Right.
And, kind of like in the military, like, they don't give at all what you're like, whatever's going on in your life doesn't matter. This is what we're doing. This is the program. And I think for some people that works. That's okay. But not in the real world. You can't do that with people who have families and jobs and lives and all kinds of stuff going on. It's ultimately not about my program. It's about your path of evolution and enlightenment, what serves your enlightenment, and not my ego. So another thing I try to present, and sometimes I'm successful and sometimes I kind of let it be, is that I really try to present the idea that physical fitness actually is spiritual. The body is spiritual.
You do say that, and I think about that. When I work it out, it helps me to get through the work. Yep, I've been able to make that connection better, because you definitely have helped me to make.
Tell me about that. You said it helps you to do the workouts, because otherwise you don't really like physical fitness. Tell me about that. What motivates you to do them?
Sometimes it's just like, but kind of in my mind, and I say, okay, like, Arriale saw, like, this is spiritual. It's like meditation, like the movement. And so I just try to sort of go there with my mind. And even though you're like, this is fun, enjoy it. I don't necessarily enjoy, but I can see, okay, this is calming and this is meditative and I'm getting stronger, and you focus on an intention. And so, and I try to bring that into even my daily walk. I used to just walk and be distracted, but I try to make it more meditative, and I have an intention when I'm doing those walks. And so I think it's just helped me connect. And like, I walk now for problem solving. I never did that before. And I'm like, I just need to go walk and be having some movement and clear my head. And then, like, solutions pop in my head. It's amazing. It's lovely. I never did that before. I never knew how to do that, I guess.
That's it. I'm so glad you say that, because now I have to share. So I've been a runner for a lot of years since I started to run track when I was like 13. And I noticed, I really thought everyone was like that until I realized, no, this is a unique thing for people who actually do a lot of fitness. Like, you have to be doing a lot of it and enjoying it. I know that maybe in my 20s, when I really started to see it and notice it and pay attention to it, whatever challenge I was having, whatever problem I was trying to solve, I would go for like an hour-long run. That was normal for me, to go for like an hour-long run. And I could feel the churning and the processing and the information and the insights coming through. And then at some point, an insight would pop into my head. Like, oh, I just know what this means. I just know how to do this. And if I just sat there or complained or called somebody, that wouldn't have happened. I always knew that. And I slowly became more and more aware of that. So then I started to use it for that purpose. So, at some point when I specifically had problem solving challenges that required me to like seriously problem solve. When you have a business, that's what happens. There's a lot of challenges to solve. I would deliberately schedule my training so that that would be my time to problem solve. And another thing is, I'll just share it here, how it's also spiritual. Sometimes it would be spiritual insights. Sometimes it's like intellectual insights. Like, here's a solution, boom, 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 an entire formula, do this, do this, do this. And sometimes it's actually spiritual experience, like stuff that people would pray and meditate and fast for. But I would have those experiences during fitness training. The more strenuous, the more spiritual insight. I know I'm not the only person like that, but I think I might be the only one who found a way to integrate that into a holistic coaching program and actually say, well, I can teach this to you. You can have this at will, even though it may feel like a miracle, but it doesn't have to like it fall on you. You can actually manifest it with strenuous fitness. So I'll give you an example. I was actually in Minnesota at this, and I was doing a lot of kickboxing and boxing training and martial arts training a lot. And I would also like to do sprints, because sprints are really fantastic as an all body training. And sometimes I don't get to do them during the winter because of ice. So as soon as the weather is good, I go outside and I do sprints. So in this particular case, I would pick a quiet street, and I just love to work out outside. I would pick a quiet street where there's no traffic. And I was doing the sprints back and forth. And at some point, as I was finishing up my sprint, I literally saw the Sacred Mother in red appear in front of me. And I don't know if you know this famous icon of the Sacred Mother in red with spears pointing at her. She's got, I think they call her the Mother of Sorrows. But in my image, the spears were pointing out. And it's like, point the spears out. And that was like a message as part of understanding self-defense. Like, don't turn your weapons at yourself, or you can translate it as don't take things out on your family, don't take things out on other people in your circle, point them out. Like, be very clear who's an ally and who's an enemy. I got that message while I was doing a sprint.
Wow.
And then I researched it. I'm like, actually, yeah, that's a very important point in martial arts philosophy. Have your have your weapons pointing out, not in. So yeah, that's just an example. I'm not guaranteeing that everyone is going to see Mother Mary when they spread, but it could happen. For me, that was the message I needed at the time. I see all kinds of things, because I'm a very visual person. It's more to the point that whatever you need to see, whatever your spirituality is,
right.
I'm not trying to convert anyone to any religion at all. It's like, that's what worked for me at the time. And I kind of was it was food for my thought. Like, it really made me think for quite a few months about what that means and why I got that message. That's part of the mindfulness and the meditation part, because you were saying, like, as you walk, you meditate, and that meditation can lead to you listening spiritually to the messages that are coming in, right? And to that point, another big distinction that I make, because some people ask, well, how is doing talk therapy or psychotherapy different from doing this program? And good question, but totally different. Like, I don't offer talk therapy. That's not what we do. It can be useful, but it's not useful to all people all the time. Like, sometimes, to me, historically, it has not really been useful. I don't like endlessly talking in circles about problems. I think some women may like it and some need it. And I always found that physical fitness did for me what I think talk therapy did for certain other people. So to each his own. But I for sure know that some of my clients feel the same way, that they would much rather do physical fitness and meditation than talk about their problems. Not because they don't think the problems can be solved or should be solved. It's that talking about them endlessly is not what's going to solve them. And they don't want medications for that. They're like, I know that this is more like an external problem that I'm dealing with. It's not a mental health issue. I just have to solve it. I have to take action in the real world. And this is where fitness comes in. Because, yeah, you do need to take action in the real world. Just endlessly talk about it is not good. And one of my clients actually brought up this point that when she was younger and she wanted to solve whatever issue, she would call 10 of her friends and just talk and talk and talk and talk until she couldn't talk anymore, and she couldn't think anymore either. And because they all gave her different advice, she didn't know what to do. I'm like, this is not constructive.
Yep, exactly.
So I would say having a spiritual insight as a result of doing a sprint is more useful than calling 10 people and getting 10 different messages and then not knowing what to do. That's just my 2 cents on the matter.
I completely agree with that. And as a person, I'm actually trained in clinical psychology. It's my background. I don't necessarily work in that directly now, but there was a time in my life where that was helpful. And so, like, I think you're right. For some people, that's helpful for a time. But like right now, I mean, just all the things I was going through, that wasn't like, I just needed to get healthy and I needed to figure out how to live a healthy life in the world that I'm in right now. And so I just needed something different, and I needed to connect spiritually different than I have in the past. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me, what you're saying.
And I think it also happens as you get older. As you get older, we get quieter. We don't need to talk as much. We kind of know a lot of the answers, but life is still complicated. You still have to
Yeah.
deal with difficult people and solve difficult problems, even though you may know the answer. But what about your kids and their kids? They don't know the answer.
Right. And that you should know the answer for yourself. Like, you have to seek your own answers, and other
Exactly.
people aren't going to know them. So you have to learn how to do that. That's been a huge learning, actually, I'll say, in the last 6 months for me too. And having the confidence that the answers are within me and they're available. If I know how to get them, other than calling 10 friends. Like, that's not the way to do it.
Exactly right. And one thing I can also attest to personally is the more physically fit I was, the more spiritual, the better my psychic connection. And if a person values that, which I think, there is a group of spiritual people who do, but they don't necessarily realize that they have to do strenuous physical fitness to cultivate that spiritual connection. They're thinking, well, I'll meditate and I'll practice law of attraction and, I'll eat vegan. And that can be okay for like a phase. But, I'll just say this one more time, even though I say it all the time, but I can't say it enough. You have to have strength training. You have to run. You have to move your body. Action. Spirituality happens in action. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in the physical body. If just sitting in meditation, sitting still in meditation was enough, why would you be in a physical body? Just be a spirit somewhere,
Yeah.
because when you meditate, you actually like kind of check out, or people chant, and they'll chant for hours. Well, that's kind of a detached sort of experience. And the body's not really doing anything. It is hard. Don't get me wrong. It is hard to meditate for hours and hours. It has its own challenge. But like if somebody's only meditating, and
Right.
and then they just, well, I just want to create peace. Okay, but what happens when you get attacked? What are you going to do? Like, well, I'll just be peaceful. Well, you're going to die. So just
Right.
just
Or
be
when you got to
careful.
haul your kids up out of a storm quickly. You got to keep them
Exactly.
safe. You got to protect people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, so it comes down to the fact that we have to have activity and peace. There's a time to meditate, and there's a time to do strength training and lift weights and do difficult things. And I don't know if you've heard this, but a lot of people who went through the new age ringer, we've heard this idea, like whatever your challenge is, just manifest, just attract things differently. If you're having a problem, you attracted it. And clearly your attraction is wrong, because clearly something in your mindset is off. And just, you got to change your mindset, and then attraction will work properly. And that's kind of the essence of it. And it's an interesting idea. Unfortunately, it doesn't work. kind of
Right.
like kind of like communism. Interesting idea, doesn't work. Every time we promise communism, there's always a tyrant who comes in and kills half the population, and that turns out to be what they had in mind the entire time. But it's a separate subject. But the reason is law of attraction doesn't work like that, and there's a lot of people that I know who practice law of attraction, but now they have a Staples job. So if you are so great at law of attraction, why didn't you manifest being a millionaire? Why do you work at Staples at a shitty job that you don't like? And you're happy to get an ice cream on sale for $1.50. Like, why is that your life? It's because struggle. We need some amount of struggle in order to overcome challenges. You can't just sit there and, like a baby, just have things delivered to you on a spoon. You actually have to go out and get them and overcome difficult things. And doing difficult things is part of the training. And that's why when I work with clients, and the clients that I much prefer to work with are people who are go-getters. They want those certain things or experiences or things that at whatever level of challenge you're at. It's different things for different people. But usually the greater the challenge, the more it sparks your fire, the desire to live and overcome. Because if you're facing a horrible situation and it doesn't spark that fire in you, you're going to die. You're going to get swept away, and that's it. You're not really going to make an impact. You're going to be at a Staples job eating $1.50 ice cream. Glad that you're at least your comfort zone. At least people can leave you alone in your comfort zone. And it's like, I'm not trying to mock anybody, but that's not exactly that's not what we were promised by the law of attraction. We were told you can have whatever you want. That's not what people got.
Right.
And I know that for sure I am where I am because I worked very, very hard and I overcame all kinds of things. If I was to write out all the things I overcame, people wouldn't even believe that. They're like, how's that possible to overcome all those things? One person couldn't possibly. I know I did.
Yeah.
I know I did because I always moved forward. I always chose to say, well, this is not going to take me out. I'm more powerful than this. I know I have the power within me, but I had to find it. And so it was through strenuous fitness and working out and solving challenges and coming out of, like in jujitsu, if someone has you in a lock or in a bind, or Houdini, you're in a bind, you have to come out of that. Sometimes you're like that in life, in real life. And nobody can tell you how to untangle that thing that you're in, because maybe you created, maybe you didn't, but nobody's coming in to give you any advice on that. They don't know. You have to just figure it out.
Yep.
So in the end, it's going to be a very unique solution to each person.
Right.
It always is. And that's why I like to work one-on-one, because it allows me to help people discover that for themselves.
Yeah.
And I do some group training too, like with fitness training usually works very well in a group. But there's some that private coaching, it's so valuable for some people who are really working through some difficult knot in their life. Like, I don't know how to detangle this. I really don't know how to solve this. We tried this and we tried that and this and this and this. And now I'm 50 and I tried 30 things and I just don't know. And I actually like that. A lot of other people run from that. They don't that's too hard. I'm like, I want the hard. I want the challenge. My brain loves the challenge. I want to solve that problem. So yeah, and that's why this program is different.
Right. Yep.
So any last minute thoughts on the spiritual aspect of it? How does that tie in with the fitness and nutrition for you? How do you feel that it's harmonious?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know. It just raises it a level up. It all works together. I no longer could see any of those things working separately to me. Like they all have to be together. I think, again, it gives me the strength for some of the nutritional challenges I've faced, and to make good decisions around that and to make, some pretty significant for me lifestyle changes. And then again, the workout, okay, if I can tap into that spiritual thing, it gives me the strength to get through the workouts, which in the long run, gives me strength overall. And I just, I've always loved the spiritual part. If I thought I could be healthy and strong by only doing spiritual stuff, I'd have done that. I was doing that alone, but I mean, it doesn't work alone. You have to do all of it together. So yeah, I can't imagine doing one without the other any longer and being successful.
Exactly right. I think you mentioned this. We're doing these things alone. Doing these things alone is very hard, very hard. And I've always had really good coaches and mentors. And I think as part of my sort of dharma in life, my mission in life is, obviously I really like to work privately with individuals doing personal training, but I feel like I'm also building a community. I'm building kind of a loose community, but of people who are, I call them enlightened warriors. The war isn't external, it's inside. It's a spiritual battle. We're all fighting some sort of spiritual battle. For a lot of people, it's their addictions or it's their own shadow, their own negative traits that they're trying to weed out of their life. But everyone is battling something destructive in their own life. It could be other people too, but usually it's both. It's like it's in your own personal life and outside of you as well. That inner battle, we all need help with that, because otherwise we're alone in it. We're completely alone in that battle. And when a person feels very discouraged when they're alone in that battle, they can lose. Not because they don't have the inner power, but they may not know how to access it. And so I feel like as a very critical component of this program is I help people to access that inner power so they can win that battle. So that we can't allow the dark forces to win.
Yeah. Yeah, and you've helped me with some, I mean, very personal things and things in my family too, that actually I did try counseling before. It wasn't successful. And you helped me, and you incorporated that into everything else that we were doing. And I can't imagine even having the strength to do some of the things I've had to do in my personal life without having all that and having all those tools that you gave to me, and just, yeah, helping me through that. So
Exactly. And just to be clear for people who don't necessarily know what I mean by spiritual, it's not religious, it's non-denominational. There's no religion. I don't convert anyone to any religion. It's spiritual in that I studied with a shamanic mentor for over 9 years. It's kind of a natural spiritual practice. I'm also very practical, so it's like a very practical spirituality, but there's no conversion going on. There's no
right,
dogmatic preaching. I don't preach at anybody. Just so people understand, if they've had those kinds of bad experiences in the past, I just want to be clear, we don't do that. That hasn't been your experience, right? Uh,
no, not at
and
all.
it's more of like, and I think people can feel the spirituality. It's a strong, it has its own energy. And I think people, after a while, they understand it's a spiritual space that we go into. It's a spiritual energy that we cultivate. It's not any one religion. And
Right,
some people need it, like just like they need food and water. We can't live without it. If you have spiritual needs, it's like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Eventually, when you mature enough, you realize you have spiritual needs. You need to
right,
do spiritual things. You need to hang out with spiritual people. Just being materialistic isn't enough. Even if you've accomplished materially, it's not enough anymore. It doesn't fulfill you that much anymore.
mhm,
You need something greater. And I feel like that's a very important component of this program is we do cultivate those spiritual powers to do good things in the world. Not
right,
like power in order to then use it in unethical means, but we want to
right,
cultivate spiritual power. We want to be powerful so that we can do good things in the world. That's the
right.
goal. So thank you so much, Dee, for this incredible conversation. I like how candidly we made some really interesting discoveries of what we're doing here and
Right,
how this is actually helping our families, our communities, how by doing these things together seems small, but it extends out into the world. And we hope to make those ripples positive, through the world, right?
right. Yeah.
So have an amazing weekend. I'll see you next
Okay,
week.
thanks. Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.